Welcome again to the That's My Dad podcast. I'm Scott Hilton here with Ty Dillon. Ty's a new friend of mine. Ty, thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
We're trying to inspire young guys who grew up without a dad. You know what the story, the podcast is about.
Right.
And you were excited because I think you got a story, and I've heard it, but I want to hear it again. So I'm just going to let you roll with your story. I think people find it interesting, and then I want to kind of pick your brain as to how you overcame the circumstances you had to overcome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, man. And
yeah.
You just put me on pause anywhere in between here. So I'm gonna go for
we'll
it.
Do
you
it.
know what I mean? Well, my story is it's not necessarily an unfamiliar story. Growing up without my biological father in the household, I was born in Franklinton, Louisiana. I don't know if you know where that is, Washington Parish. And
it's in Louisiana. It's a different country.
You got on quick, man.
It doesn't matter what parish you're in. It's all a different zip code.
Yeah. And, probably 18 months, 2 years old, something like that, my mom moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, her and her sister. But she had another sister that was there, and she had a sister that they moved together. I have a cousin. We're about a year apart, and so they moved there. And ultimately, my auntie moved back to Louisiana. My mom decided to stay, and so it was her and I. Of course, she had her other sister, but she had a husband, family, that type of thing. So this is early '80s, and so just had different dynamics that came with being raised in a single parent household. And the interesting thing about it is, it's not until I look back over those years that I realized some of the deficiencies, if you want to call them that, whether it's financial or whatever it is, because it just was what it was. As a kid, you just know what you know, and so I didn't think it's strange to, go stand in line to get food or, powdered milk back then, or peanut butter, or cheese that comes in a little cardboard looking thing. And so you had different dynamics with, again, the financial pieces of it, trying to make things happen. As I got older, I understand why mom couldn't get in certain things now, you know what I mean? Certain shoes or clothes or whatever it is. But back then it just kind of, you were just kind of living life, you know what I mean? We went to neighborhood schools, and so you walked to school. I walked to school until I was in sixth grade. This is Milwaukee now. You know what I mean? So this is snow and all these other type things.
You really did walk to school in the snow.
Yeah, you really did.
Yeah, people talk about that here. They don't know what they're talking about, do they? Stories.
Yeah, no, we really did walk to school in the snow. And so I had my auntie who lived there. She had 5 boys, 1 girl, and so I had a family system kind of there, you know what I mean, within the neighborhood, that type of thing. But it still was your own personal core was me and my mom. And so from a father standpoint, it began to morph or evolve to picking up just traits from those who were around you. It's the kind of the natural evolution, I think, of things. What I mean?
Now, where did your dad?
So he was still in Louisiana, and whatever the dynamics were between my mom and he. You know what I mean? Of course, you're a kid. You don't get that. I just knew it was just me and my mom. Yeah. He was still in Louisiana, and we haven't had any connection per se pretty much for the most of my life. There's been literally a handful of times that I've seen him when I was a kid, and even since being an adult, I've reached out, but it's really been to no avail.
Did he leave y'all when you were a baby, or did you?
I think my mom kind of said she was out. She was leaving. She was going to do something different. I don't think it was working. I don't think it was a planned thing, and so they weren't married at the time, young, you know what I mean? So I think she just wanted to try a new life, start something different, and he chose not to follow, and it just created that distance. And now the keeping in contact part and all of that, who knows, but.
Did he make any effort to keep in touch with you?
That is hard for me to say because, of course your mom's not going to tell you all the stuff, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure about that, but I know that we weren't in contact a whole lot, You know,
Okay.
so now whose part that was on, I'm not sure.
Did that bother you at any point, or did it
Well,
just kind of part of life?
I think it was initially. I think it just kind of was what it was, and then I think as I got a little older, there were things that I felt like I should have been participating in with a dad, or either I should have known that my friends knew that I didn't know. Well, simple stuffs like working on the car or shooting pool or whatever it is. It's like some of my friends, that information came almost built in, and I had to learn it from them, you know, that kind of thing. So I knew something just wasn't right, and so I felt almost at a disadvantage in that regard. But you know, I never held resentment, like you know, resentment for him in that regard. But I just knew, okay, I'm supposed to know that.
Do you think, though, as a kid, though, do you think about those things, or is it just something that happens? Do you think about, I need to be looking at Uncle Percy, or I need to be looking at Joe, or is it just kind of part of life?
Well, for me, I wasn't necessarily thinking about I need to be looking at a certain person. I just would kind of see what I wanted and didn't want. And so I would try to make this kind of hodgepodge of a man, dad figure. Oh, I like the way he does this with his family. Oh, I like the way the job he has or whatever. Oh, he's athletic. So I'm trying to put pieces together from different guys to make this person. And that's good, but it also can be dangerous. I think I shared this with you before we got on the podcast when we talked, and it can be dangerous. And I use, for an example, just learning how to put on cologne. You know, I wanted to smell good because the guys told me that's what you need to do. And I saw, you know, you get the compliments and all this stuff. And so, man, I'm going to get some cologne. I didn't know any difference between the cheap cologne, good cologne, whatever. I just wanted some smell good, you know. And so one guy says, okay, yeah, you spray it on your wrist because, you know, that's your pulse points or whatever it is. Okay, cool. Another guy says, yeah, but you got to spray it on your neck too. Okay. Another guy says, well, you're a little tall, so when you walk by, you want them to smell you, so spray around your waist area. Another guy says, well, if they walk up behind you, then you want to spray it just so it meets them, you know. The next thing you know, man, you spraying on 10, 12, 15 sprays, and like
you running everybody
off. And so it's having the reverse effect.
Okay.
And sometimes, like life, people advising you can be the same way.
Yeah.
You know, do it this way. Well, do it this way. Because in most cases, people are telling you, they only can tell you what they know. I think that it's getting better because there's a statement that a gentleman that has been very impactful in my life as a father since I've been an adult, you know, is my pastor, but he really taught me so much about manhood, about money management, about family, you know, that kind of, he really embraced me like a son. And one of the statements that he makes is exposure expands your expectation.
Oh.
And so sometimes when you're in a certain 6, 7, 8 block radius, that's your world. And you don't know about any better food, more quality food. You're eating, you know, chips and cookies and hamburgers and fries, and it's just what it is. That's what you eat.
You think that's what you're supposed to eat?
That's what you're supposed to. You don't know about nutrition. You don't know about some of the health things. You don't know about relationship things. You know the relationship dynamics that you see. You know, you only know what you know. And so now with technology, there's just so many other things that you're exposed to. And so exposure expands your expectation. Oh, I can eat differently. Oh, I don't have to live like this. Oh, I can live in better conditions because now you know. And so it gives you something else to aspire for.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I would say it's better because it's almost like the blinders are removed. Now getting from point A to point B will be its own thing, but at least I know a point B exists. Sometimes it can be very disheartening to think that this is all that there is.
Yeah.
Like, this is life.
So what? I mean, that's why I wanted you on the podcast. The minute we met, we talked on the phone for a couple of hours, I think, and I knew I got to have that guy because there's young men out there who I know who will look at you and relate to you.
Yeah.
And you've expanded their whole world. We haven't even told your whole story. I'm going to get there, but you've expanded the possibilities. What was that quote again?
Exposure expands your expectation.
Exposure expands your expectation. Yeah, see, that's what we're trying to do on the podcast.
Yeah,
here.
if we can just put the taste in your mouth for – see, we talked about the government cheese and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to go back to government cheese once you've tasted, some Gouda.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some good sharp cheddar.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back, because you've been exposed now.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is trying to, and we do that even to this day in our ministry, we try to take kids to different types of restaurants they wouldn't go with their family. We'll teach them how to order off the menu, that kind of thing. Or we take them to, different areas for buying clothes or whatever it is, or different events or whatever it is, just to put the taste in your mouth. And I think it awakens something.
Yeah. People don't realize
it's a seed. Yeah.
When I was at the Boys Ranch, I would take the kids for a ride in a car.
Yeah.
They thought we were just out going somewhere, But I would take them through a nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they'd say, wow, look at that house. Yeah. And I would just casually say, that could be you one day.
Yeah.
I was planting seeds.
Absolutely.
I was exposing them to something a lot of them had never seen.
But I guarantee you it marked them for life in a good way.
So what happened? You got on into high school. Was there a point where you kind of thought, I don't really fit this mold. I don't think I'm going to be one of those guys that's going to be here when I'm 40. I'm going to move on. I'm going to find something else. Do you recall a point that you said, I'm going to do something different, or was it somebody in your life? What was the turning point for you?
Yeah, I think that I always knew it was something more, something more. And whether it was from TV or magazines or whatever, I just felt like there was something else, and even though I was in a certain environment, I felt like there had to be a way for me to experience more than what I was currently experiencing. And you said that about high school. It's funny how words, and we used to hear this thing about in the 90s, we used to hear this thing about, the black male is going to be extinct by 2000 and whatever it is. Yeah. And the crazy part about it is what I was seeing in my however many block radius and what they were saying at school, it was really like confirming, because when you're hearing about this one's got shot and this one happened to this person, and I had a one friend over Thanksgiving break. He died from a Russian roulette, playing with a gun. This is 8th grade. Had another guy. He died from robbery gone wrong. This is like within probably 2-3 years. And
that was your norm. That was your world.
At one point, I wrote them all down, and I probably had my 18.
Really?
And that I knew personally within 3-4 years, that kind of thing. So you're hearing this, you're not going to make it. You're thinking like, man, I just need to get to 18, 20. And you're thinking like, man, I've lived. And you're still a baby.
Yeah.
You're still a baby.
I survived.
Yeah, I survived. So I'm getting back to your question. You're talking about, when did I make a decision? Well, I figured that since life wasn't going to be long anyway, that, man, I wanted to go for it, whatever it was. And at the time, I had no clue what it was. I just knew that there had to be something else. There had to be something different. I didn't want that to be like my story.
So what'd you do?
Initially, man, I just worked all the time. You know what I mean? I figured
just any kind of work you could find, or
my first job was at Mr. Perkins' soul food restaurant. This is at 14, and they broke me in real good. I guess I was a young back, strong. Said, we're going to get him to do all.
And you
kinds
started
of
working
stuff.
when you was 14.
Yeah, I started working when I was 14. I hadn't stopped since.
Had to get a permit. What else did you do?
Well, I did that. Then I worked at a mall job. I worked in in a clothing store. I worked at a outlet clothing store at one point. I worked. This is, of course, when I'm old enough to work. Before that, it was shoveling snow. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was raking leaves. It was that kind of thing. I've always been okay with working, that kind of thing. And doing those things, man, was kind of one of my primary focuses, just trying to figure out how to make some money, how to help my mom, how to buy some of my own stuff, whether it's school clothes or whatever it is. And so I felt a need to contribute.
But you eventually decided to go into barbering, right? That was where you found your passion.
That's where I found kind of my niche. And eventually, I was cutting hair when I could, and I was working my mall job. But one Saturday, I was cutting so much hair that morning, I had to be to work, say, 1 or 2 o'clock to close, in the mall. I had pretty much made my mall check that morning. I said, okay, well, something's got to give. And I made a decision at that point that I was going to go full throttle with the whole cutting hair and barber type of thing. So it was a good move.
How old were you then?
17.
Really?
Yeah,
already in business at 17.
Yeah, already going for it, and it was working out really well, man, for me. And interesting enough, it was another level of being fathered and being matured. I didn't know it at the time. I'm cutting hair, But once I got in that barbershop, once I finally kind of matriculated out of the house into working in my first shop, well, I'm in a shop full of guys.
Okay.
And so you're getting the stories, you're getting the things they did wrong, things they did well.
There's a message there.
Yeah.
Listen to people.
Yeah. So I'm listening.
You said you were inquisitive.
Yeah.
I think that's a trait a lot of young guys can say. Be inquisitive.
Ask questions.
Ask questions. Find out from other people. So you got into the barber shop business. Then you ended up having your own.
Yeah, I did.
Place?
I did. But before I had my own place, I worked at this particular shop for maybe a couple years. Now, this shop didn't have the best reputation. So I made a decision to go to another place. It was called G's Clippers. And it's like a household name in Milwaukee till this day. And I finally got there because I told you this shop didn't have the best reputation. So the owner, he's like, yeah, he was kind of blowing me off like, yeah, well, maybe, because he didn't know me. And ultimately, I kind of convinced him to give me a shot, and we just kind of clicked. And
I like that.
Yeah, he's probably just wise, man. He's 6 so years older than me. You know what I mean? So not a very old guy, but another level of being father. So he began to help me put some structure in place. Okay, you have the skills, but let's now put some structure around what you have so you can package it and it can really be a business and it can do you and your family well. And so he began to grow me up and kind of groom me, and I was kind of along his side as he grew his whole business. And to this day, he's the go-to place for like the Milwaukee Bucks and different people come in town, concerts and all that. They're going to call him. His name is G. Shout out to G if you're watching this. And he's really helped me just grow into another level of manhood. And so along the way, God always had people in place to help me to function in that father role. So he didn't leave me just out there,
And that's a message to young guys. If you look.
Yeah, if you look.
I think God has a plan for all of them.
I believe it.
But you got to be looking.
Yeah.
You got to be aware. You got to be inquisitive. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Look, talk to yourself.
Okay.
As that kid. I mean, that's really why I wanted you here, is to just speak to that young man. And my prayer is that there's going to be a young man, or a lot of them, who are where you were, and they'll be able to relate to you. What do you want to say to them? What do they need to hear?
Yeah.
What are the keys?
Yeah, I would say to myself or a young man who is in the same position that I was in, I would say to him that, number one, with God, all things are possible. And I would let them know that you are not, you have value. And whatever may be happening around you, whether it's your family dynamics or whether it is the neighborhood that you live in, or, maybe, being bullied at school. Maybe you don't have what everybody else has and the tennis shoes and this, that, and the other, and you feel like you're less than. I would say to you, you are valuable. And I will let you know that there are so many opportunities for you. Your life is not a waste. It's not something that you should take lightly. I know you may be thinking that, what's the use? Hey, it's always going to be like this. I want to give you a message of hope to let you know that if you hang in there, if you listen to those who have your best interests at heart, if you make good decisions, when you do right, right will follow you. You may not know all the ins and outs of this, that, and the other. You may not have all the wisdom. You may not know how to do some of the things that you just don't know how to do. I would encourage you do not give up, do not quit, and do the right thing.
Tell me, how'd you learn to be a good dad?
Oh, man. One of the ways was seeing a good mom. I couldn't go without, kind of shouting my mom out. She did an amazing job.
Let's brag on your mom. You can
Yeah.
speak to your mom if you want to.
Yeah. No, man, I'll be up here. I need tissue if I do all of that stuff. You know what I mean? No, she did an amazing job, and the more I've grown and matured, and as I've become a parent, then I've been able to see and get a true picture of what unconditional love looks like. That was a big part of it. Right? The other part of it is I wanted to be for my kids what I didn't have for myself. And so my children have such an advantage to be able to lean on dad, to be able to call on dad, those simple things, being there. If I wasn't, and if I'm not anything else for my kids, I want to be there. I want to be dependable. I want there to be no question whether I love them, whether I support them, whether I would protect them with my very life if necessary. I want that to be like no question.
So tell us briefly as we get ready to close. Tell us a little bit about your kids and your wife. We haven't heard about your wife. Your wife and kids, and maybe some things you feel like you're doing right.
Yeah. And
maybe some things you're doing wrong or have done wrong.
Man, I think I'm doing the 100% all in part of it right. I think I have the priorities right. I think even as a pastor, I have the priorities right. I have God, family, church. I've seen a lot of again, I've learned a lot of what not to do. I've seen a lot of pastors that have tried to save the world and lose their own house.
Mm-hmm.
So making that adjustment and making sure that the priorities are straight and that my kids and wife don't feel in competition with the church, and that they know that they know the place that they hold with me, and that dad belongs to them, not just to the church and to the people.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I think that's very important. So being all in and having the priority piece of it is right. Being there for them, I believe I'm getting that right, The things that I know I can work on is just being, I'm told I don't, as much as I talk in a setting like this and on microphones, that I don't communicate the best with my family. And we talk, but just really having those conversations that are heartfelt, those conversations that can be difficult or challenging conversations. That's something that I continue to work on.
What's your family mean to you?
Oh, man, it's everything. It's everything. And I don't know of a greater gift that God has given me than my family. My wife is amazing. We're human like everybody else, and so we have our times and moments. I'm not saying perfect, but it's amazing. I can't think of anybody else I want to do life with and be connected to and be on this journey of life with. And my children are three little miracles. They're busy little, hungry little miracles, growing little miracles, but they're miracles nonetheless. And the wonderful thing I can say, and I'll stop, is that if you ask them, I believe that they would say that what I'm saying to you now publicly, that they feel that way privately, because I try to make it my business to express that to them on a regular basis.
Yeah, when they get to be adults, which won't be long.
Yeah.
What do you hope that they look back and think about you and say about you as a dad?
Yeah. Really, the dad loved us beyond words, and he, whatever was necessary to express that, he was willing to do.
I know you want to know what they think now. We used to surprise people with this. It's kind of hard to surprise, but they kind of like Dad. I think kids aren't the only ones that like Dad.
Yeah.
So I know you want to see this, and I don't know if you know we did it or not, but
yeah. Well, I didn't know if that was a regular thing.
It's just a little gift that we like to share with you and get your reaction to.
I appreciate it. Oh man.
I like most about my dad because he plays basketball with me and he's nice. Thank you, Dad, for hanging up my basketball hoop and tying my shoes. Thank you, Dad.
The thing I like most about my dad is that he is loving. Dad, I want to thank you for being there for me.
One funny story with my dad is one time we went somewhere and my dad took a big box and put a whole bunch of snacks in it. And then he said he ate all the snacks in the pantry. So I wanted to do a prank with my siblings. So my dad took a jar of sugar and a jar of salt. I got the jar of sugar, put some water in it, and that was good. But then my sister got the salt water, and it was super funny.
The thing I like most about my dad is that he's creative. So he helps me on projects and DIYs, and we can do whatever that I like. And he takes me to Hobby Lobby.
The thing I appreciate most about my husband as a father is the fact that he is an excuse eliminator. Even though he did not grow up with his father, and even in this current season where he's building a new ministry, he is there for his children. He is a great father. Everything from being involved in DIY projects, sports with our son, and telling funny jokes, making up jokes together. He is there, engaging them and letting them know they are a priority. As much as he works, he still prioritizes his children. Wow. And that's what I appreciate most about him.
Oh, man.
Did you know your wife felt that way about you?
Oh, man. I hope she did, and it lets me know that what I'm telling you that I hope is the impression that I'm making on them, that I'm headed in the right direction, and that's such a far cry from my roots. But it's a testament to how much God can do in our life,
You're a guy that came out of totally different situation than what your kids are going to experience. And it's
Absolutely.
Our hope, as you said, to expose people out there listening. I mean, I like it that the women and adults listen to the podcast and watch it, and they tell me they enjoy it. But what I really want is guys who came out of your background to see where you are now.
Yeah.
And I want them to see that people think we show those children's tributes so we can make people cry. But no, it's really because we want young guys to see what it can be.
Yeah.
We want them to have a vision for the potential of their life.
Absolutely.
So you're going to inspire somebody. You shared, and as we get ready to close, I wanted to mention this. You wrote a book.
I did.
Tell me the name of the book and how we can find it and what it's about.
Man, well, I appreciate you letting me share it on your platform, man.
Sure, yeah.
I wrote a book. It's called Go, Get Unstuck, and Move Towards Your Dreams. And it's a very comprehensive, it's almost a manual more than a book. There's 20 principles in there that are biblical success principles. And each of them, interesting enough, I alliterated Go, G-O, and, each of them talks about how you can do practical things to help you start moving forward. Each of them also has a little on the go is what we call it. And this is something you can do immediately, because I believe you can't just be a hearer, but you got to be a doer to see the stuff working, and you can find it anywhere books are sold.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, that type of thing. Or you can go to my website, tymetricdillon.com, and you can get it directly from me. And so,
or Google Ty Dillon.
Google Ty Dillon.
You can find it.
You'll find it.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott, for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing.
Been good.
Thanks so much.
That concludes this episode of That's My Dad, where we're inspiring fathers to become great dads, and we're breaking cycles of generational fatherlessness. Come back next week. See ya.